seems odd. There's something new here. Holy shit, did I realize? Is there two fucking webcams of me? wait, hold on. Let me start this over. Oh my god, why is there two webcams of me? This is gonna be super trippy. How about I fix that real quick? My apologies. Why the hell is there two webcams of me?
No.
No, quiet. Include PlayStation camera in the broadcast. I get rid of that? Okay, there you go. That's much better. Okay, I was about to say, do I have to start the whole stream over? Sorry about that. I didn't think that through. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody. One big warm welcome to my first, my very first, no, actually that's a lie. My second very first live review, but this time I'm not alone. I have a little special guest star with me. My good old pal, Sir Record Leader, or whatever the hell he calls himself this time. We just call him the boy Nick Arias. Mr. Nick Arias, how are you doing?
No.
No. So, as you can tell, he sounds very excited for the simple reason that we just came back from seeing Rise of Skywalker last night. Holy fuck, why is my camera... I'm sorry, I know I'm changing like a billion things right now, but I don't like the way the camera looks. Wait, let's change that real quick. Oh, we got one person live. Welcome. Welcome, whoever that is. Thank you all for watching. So, yeah, we just saw Rise of Skywalker last night. Let me just quickly change the camera settings. Jesus fucking Christ. Is there a way I can change that? Let's lower the brightness a little. No. Okay, why do you keep saying no the whole goddamn time? Are you okay? Is your brain broken? Oh, did I not fix the brightness? God damn it. Well, anyway, okay, whatever. We're just gonna have to deal with that. So, as you can tell, I'm all decked up. I have my bucket. I have my movies. We just saw Rise of Skywalker last night. It's official. We saw it. We saw the grand finale. The great Skywalker saga, the legendary saga, the legendary series where it all started is now officially come to an end. I've only seen it once, just to keep things ahead. I saw it specifically last night at 8 p.m. I do not have my ticket on me because it was digital. I saw it at the AMC theaters. And Nick personally went to go see it another time, though. He went to go see it early with his father because, oh, look at me, I have a loving and caring family. Disgusting. And I went to go see it with my friends because I'm cool. And here is what we thought about the movie. So, the way we set this up, as you can tell, it's live. There's gonna be a lot of mess ups already, as you can tell. I'm perfect at this. I'm just excellent at making things up as I go. So, we obviously know the obvious. We have the emergency towel, which is now my lovely little sweater that my family gave me a few weeks ago, just in case something gets interrupted and you guys don't need to see a bunch of unnecessary random bullcrap. And like, since we're talking live, it's all on the spot. If we mess things up, we'll explain ourselves. And since I have a special guest star with me that probably doesn't talk a lot because his brain malfunctions constantly, it's really just gonna be a lot of discussing. And I know the big question is if we're gonna be doing any spoilers or non-spoilers. So this is how we set it up. This review will have spoilers later. We're gonna have two halves of this review. I'm gonna put a time step when we get this right. I'm putting oh my gosh, shut up. We're putting a 10-minute alarm on my phone here. Okay, let's see if you, I don't know if you guys can see, is it too bright? For fuck's sake, I already put a YouTube video. No, not what I wanted, sorry. I'm excellent at these. We have, oh crap, that's way too bright. Hold on. Wait, no. Okay, is that better? Yeah, that's better. So with my beautiful cracked phone, we have a 10-minute alarm that we're gonna place. We're gonna set this whole thing up for 10 minutes where we're gonna discuss whatever we feel about the movie without spoiling anything. And once those 10 minutes are done, we can start spoiling whatever the fuck we feel like our biggest gripes with the movie. Because there's a lot in our minds going on right now. Without further ado, I want to get into this. Nick, are you ready for this? I don't know what else I can explain.
Baby Yoda.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's your first spoiler. I guess we're not good with this. Anyway, 3, 2, 1. Time has... Oh, shit. There you go. Time has begun. Oh, shit. You can't read that. Dude, why am I terrible at this? Okay. Time has begun. 10 minutes in. Let's begin. First off, Nick, what are our initial thoughts? What are our full thoughts about this movie? Can we get that aside? What do we think about it?
I like it.
You like it. I like it too. All we can agree on. Okay, first, let's get one thing out of the head. Does it have problems?
Yes.
Yes.
Many.
100%. It is filled with many flaws, especially in the story department and specifically with the antagonist. Weakest part of the film. Definitely has flaws. Does the movie suck because of those flaws? Did it bring the whole movie down? No. There's a lot of things that we love about this movie. You like the movie? Yes. We liked most of the things of these movies. About this movie, despite the big flaws. And I know a lot of people are reviewing this movie. It's kind of a mess right now, really. It's a bit of a civil war. There's either people are saying it's the worst Star Wars movie of all time, and this makes the prequels look better, and this ruined the whole trilogy, and there's some people saying like this just shows that Disney was lost. The other one, which I kind of agree with, the other one is that, you know, this movie was amazing, it's everything I wanted, it fixes everything I hated about The Last Jedi. Like, there's so many extremes going on right now, and that I feel like Nick and I are kind of like just in the middle ground with the majority, the silent majority, the ones that aren't freaking out and fighting people in the comment section, that are just in there just saying, the movie has flaws, doesn't do a lot of things right, but yeah, doesn't do a lot of things right, but most of the things are handled well. So many things are just done superb, and it's just a solid Star Wars film and gives you the satisfaction with incredible moments and great characters. That's what I felt along the way. Like, there are 100% flaws about this movie that we're going to discuss, and especially that's why I'm actually kind of looking forward to the spoiler section. That's why we weren't sure if we just want to make it spoiler free, because I understand that it's the first weekend that this movie comes out, and especially as a Star Wars fan as I am, and I know many of you guys are, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, and just because I know a lot of you guys actually do generally like to come watch these reviews, which thank you, which reminds me I should get my water bottle I saw in the background. I talk a lot, so we need this water. So we want to make sure that we can satisfy both people, both kinds of people. People who haven't seen the movie yet, so they just want to know what we think about it and if it's worth going to see. Which, yes, despite its problems, we still think it's 100% worth seeing. And then the people who have already seen it and want to discuss what did you feel about the big plot points that happened, the big flaws about the film, or the stuff you liked. So we're still going in, and since we're still going spoiler free, I think we can still. Is it considered spoiler to discuss what we liked without outright saying it? No, yeah, that's not spoiler free. We just got to make it as not so obvious as possible. So, Nick, what was your favorite part of this film? What do you think is the strongest part that keeps it going? If you had to pick.
The strongest part, the character arcs.
I agree. That's the part I'm with.
How they evolve over the film.
That's for me my strongest point. Oh, we got 2 viewers live. Welcome everybody. Welcome to our Star Wars review. So yeah, I 100% agree. Can you be welcoming to the people watching? Yeah, so we're just discussing right now what we think about the movie. For anyone who's come in already early and doesn't know what's happening, oh, we got a first comment. Oh, hello. I want to see what people are saying. Hold on, let's see this. We're 6 minutes in, Nick. We're doing good. We haven't spoiled anything yet, right? Aside from the big train fuck that happens with Baby Yoda and all the stormtroopers. That's the only thing. Spoiler, I had to say it. We all knew it was coming. Come on, guys. That was so hot, I agree. Thoughts on the Joker? Oh, it's Mr. Boy Mickey. Sir, if you want to know my thoughts on the Joker, you can actually go check out my Joker review that I did about a month ago. No need to talk about it here. If you want a quick description, I thought it was one of the best movies of the year. But no, I'm not telling the whole details. Welcome to the stream, though. We're just discussing Star Wars here, all Star Wars. But yes, like you were saying, Nick, earlier, I do 100% agree. The one thing that keeps this movie alive, and you know me, the thing that I've always said, since obviously you guys know I'm passionate about filmmaking, I love to study a lot. For me, the strongest part when you're writing a story, the strongest part your story should always be that no matter what fails, should always be the characters. Because the story can be absolute garbage or an absolute mess, but if those characters are interesting or fun or caring enough to keep you throughout the whole ride, they can keep the whole ride strong and going, and you won't even notice the problems with the story. A perfect example of it is the first Avengers movie. Let's be real here. That plot to the first Avengers movie is one of the most basic, forgettable, cliche plots in history. The guy wants to take over the planet, wants to invade New York City, specifically, a big city, alien invasion, big spaceships. Haven't seen that before. Marvel then comes, though, and says, but we're going to give you this whole cast of incredibly interesting characters that have these crazy arcs and learn how to work with each other and struggle with their own past. That makes the movie a billion times more interesting and makes I believe, one of the greatest comic book movies of the decade and even of all time. That's, for me, what this movie gets right. Like Nick said, character arcs are 100% strong in this movie, and it kept my attention the whole way. Despite anything I can feel with what I'm about to go into the weakest part of this film, the main protagonists keep you so into it. They're so caring, they're so fun, and even in general, when they're not really just doing much, they make it where, like, because I'll admit there's some specific character where I just feel like they didn't have much to do. Specifically, I feel like Finn was probably the weakest one out of them, only on the fact that because in The Last Jedi, which, Nick, is spoiler territory to talk about The Last Jedi? No, that's already been 2 years. If you haven't seen that yet, then that's on you. When Finn already completed, for me, his arc in The Last Jedi, when he tries to sacrifice himself by the end, that was him completing his arc. He was willing to give his whole life up for the Resistance. That's what he completed. That was his ultimate decision. That's what he decided. After all this time of being with them, that's what he wanted to do. His arc should have finished there. Rose decides to pull a complete 180 and rescue him for no reason, and then apparently they tried to build this random little love interest in that at the end, which for me was the worst part of The Last Jedi, and you guys know what I feel about that movie, so that's still, if you guys wonder what I think failed, it's that part of the movie, definitely. That I feel like Finn didn't really have much to do. I'm not going to say what he specifically does, but like, even the interesting stuff, like in general throughout a lot of the movie, I feel like he's just there for the ride. Is that just me? Did I get that feeling? Did you get that feeling? Are you there? Am I talking to myself? Hello?
No.
Oh my god. My guest star just had a heart attack. Well, yeah, okay, Nick, what did you feel about Finn throughout the movie without any spoilers? Without spoilers. You gotta keep it spoiler free. We got 5
I
minutes.
like the joke too, but I feel like he could have like
Done more?
done more. You've been there more.
Yeah, that's the part that I do agree with the most. We got 3 minutes, by the way. Here's proof. I feel like he could have done a little more. But even with the a bit that he was doing, I think that's why I think JJ, like, did you notice that like throughout the whole movie until like the end part or like the finale, like they're together the whole way. Like even see. Should I explain? Yeah, okay, I'm not saying what he specifically does. Tiny little spoiler warning if you don't know exactly how things go down. Even C-3PO is probably like with the whole gang. Like, they're all together like throughout most of the movie. And I feel like they did that on purpose. So it's like an Avengers thing that, like, no matter what, like, the characters are going to be together. So, like, you have to focus on them. And they can, like, just work off each other. You get what I mean? So, like, it just makes it interesting and fun enough where they're just trying to work together to get with what they're trying to get to. You know what I mean? That's the way I felt it. It's not that he still doesn't have any interesting character arcs, though, which is what I do appreciate. I feel like J.J. Abrams 100% had a lot that he was going through with this film, and 100% one of the biggest things they had to deal with was a lot of the plot holes that he was going to rewrite, because clearly a big issue with this film, aside from the antagonist, I'm going to get on in a bit, especially in the spoiler territory, is that because clearly, as much as I love The Last Jedi, I will admit that it was a very different film, not just in the world of Star Wars, but in general in the world of the trilogy. It was almost like the complete opposite of The Force Awakens, and though I feel like they could have 100% connected all of them all around somehow with the final movie, since JJ and so many fans specifically got so pissed off about The Last Jedi and got so rational about it and just wanted to even like off the face of the earth, that the Disney and JJ panicked and they just want to find a way where they can dismiss a lot of what happened in The Last Jedi so they can just change things up. So that's why I feel like they added new things for the characters to do. And most of it for me works. It's still fun and interesting enough, and it still connects to the overarching story of what the trilogy was going for, where it's not too messy. But there are some things, like I said, with where Finn suffers a lot, that because his character arc was kind of already finished in the first place in the last movie, I don't really see a purpose anymore for him, despite what he explores more, which does work. But I feel like he just, in general, should have... They really messed up in the last movie, man, where he shouldn't have either he shouldn't have wanted to sacrifice himself in the last movie. I know this is a review of Rise of Skywalker, but he shouldn't have wanted to sacrifice himself in the movie, or he should have just died right there. And Poe and Rey would have been our main characters throughout the whole way. But he's still in it, and they still find enough interesting things to do, which I have to discuss in spoilers. But the main thing is that they still keep the whole gang together, where they're just having fun and just working together now with this main plot to just finally defeat the First Order once and for all, and this new surprise rising threat that's in the movie, that it just works enough to keep them interesting and entertaining throughout the whole way. So they distract you. I guess the word is distract, though I don't like to use that word too much, because it's almost like they're trying to blind you to the problems, which isn't the case. But that's the only word I can think of right now. So they kind of distract you from the problems long enough with how fun and interesting the characters are that you don't even care about the problems. That's the way at least I felt. That's the way I see this movie. And how many minutes do we have still before we start discussing spoilers? Did I even like mention that the movie came out? No, yeah, I already mentioned that. I was thinking, did I even mention what movie we're talking about? No, I mentioned it earlier. All right, Nick. Spoiler-free territory is about to end in 3, 2... It's your alarm, folks. It's over. No, shut up. Okay, so now we're officially done with our spoiler-free part of the review. Now we're going in all spoilers. So, once again, if you have not seen this movie yet at all, please get that hell out, because you can tell I'm having troubles talking about it, because there's a lot I want to discuss, and now I'm ready to go into it. Get out. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go buy your ticket today. Go watch it with your friends. Go watch it with family. We said we liked it. There's a lot of stuff that you're going to love that's really fun, and the characters are fun enough. If you just want to hear from that, the characters are awesome. The antagonists are the weakest part of the film. You're going to be really disappointed by that. Everything else is fine. Most of it's actually really good. Go check it out. You don't like it. Alright, ready? Spoilers? 3, 2, 1. So the Emperor. Emperor Palpatine, for me, is the weakest part of this film. No doubt in my mind. He just shouldn't have been there. What do you think?
Wasn't there.
He just wasn't there. He had no he wasn't there. God damn it. Just get into the conversation. Holy shit, we're getting people coming in fast. Welcome on board. You guys should really check this out. We're going spoiler territory now, by the way, so if you don't want no spoilers, get the hell out. Go. Joker's film was crap. Get the hell out. How do you find Joker's film crap? Wait, what does it say? Every 2019 movie sucks. Every 2019 movie sucks, dude? Come on, man. That's just extreme to say. Thank you for watching, though. Welcome, but come on. Calling every 2019... We had Endgame this year. We had goddamn Joker this year. How could you say they all suck? Anyway, that's not the point. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that, yeah, definitely to go on to Rise of Skywalker, despite everything I loved, and as much as I love the characters, and like you said, I do love the arcs, how the finale that comes with Poe specifically is my favorite part, how he ends with the rebellion, and how it shows that he's become such a leader, and despite a lot of this movie, he's so worried about him, like, thinking that nobody answered that call in The Last Jedi, which I do love how they played with that. That is a clever way that he did handle a lot of things we didn't like with The Last Jedi, and I like that callback where, yeah, since it's clearly time has passed, they could just write off that, you know, no, it seems like no one answered the call, no one called their hope, so they're so much less hope in the galaxy, and they're so much more afraid of like how they're gonna overcome this challenge. But until that grand finale comes and all the freaking ships come in and Lando brings in this big ass fleet, that they realize they weren't alone in the end, that they were never alone. There was always people there. They just needed the hope to have the guts and the courage to get out there and fight. I love that they play with that with Poe. So I love Poe's character arc. And like I said, because I know it sounds like, since I can't talk too much about what happens in this movie, that it sounds like Finn's character kind of sucks. That's not the case at all. He's still interesting, and despite his character being over, his knowledge and what he's learned, and he still serves with what he's learned, still keeps the story going to make it fun and interesting, and he still has a lot to explore in this film. The main thing that he learns throughout this movie that I love is that he explores that he wasn't the only one. Because like I said, as you're going to notice, the main theme about this film, that a lot that they explore, is the idea of fear. Fear itself. What these characters have feared throughout this trilogy. Rey being afraid to face her past. Rey being afraid to face this great challenge because she feels like she's a nobody. Poe, his biggest fears, was feeling that they are all alone in this fight and they can't beat him without any help. He is afraid that no one answered the call, so they're all alone. Fear of being alone. Finn was also kind of in the same idea of fear of being alone, being a nobody, that he was abandoned. He never knew his family, so he thought the Resistance was the only home he had, and without them, there's nobody. But then he realizes throughout the film, one of the big arcs he discovers, that he realizes he wasn't alone this whole time. He realized early that actually there's a lot of people that are just like him. There's this whole band of characters that they find. Who are they supposed to be again, Nick? I just can't remember their name for the life of me. The dude with the horses? The chick and the guys with the horses? What are their names? On that planet where they find the Death Star? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember for the life of me. I can't remember. They're not forgettable. They are really interesting and do serve a big part of the story. I can't remember the names for the life of me. You guys know I'm terrible with names in the first place. But the big thing that they serve is that they all used to be stormtroopers just like Finn, but they abandoned the First Order. They're, what do you call that? They're fucking, how did I forget the name? I was going to say they're treasonous, but no, the point is that they're what is the word? Nick, what's the word when you abandon something? When you abandon the army? What do you call that? Excuse me, that was so rude of me, Christ. Deserters. There. I don't know why I was thinking about desert. They're all deserters. Hell yeah, of course. Always think about desert to help me out. They're all deserters. And I love that explores a Finn's arc, that a lot of what he goes through the story, that I like that they worked with, is that he now has this fear that he was all alone. Despite him being able to give up this whole resistance, he's still now sad that he feels like no one's there for them anymore. And he's almost like kind of the last of his kind, because yeah, though obviously there's a billion stormtroopers, he feels like he's the only one that was ever able to leave, so everyone he ever knew is gone. And that's why I love that they explore, and they kind of even explore, like, they almost were like bonding into like a relationship, right? Like Finn and that new chick that they explore in the movie. Am I right about that? Like, was there a clear love, or is it just like a friends thing where you just happen to meet someone? No talk, no answer. God damn it, Nick.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God, Christ, you're the world's greatest guest I ever had. So yeah, no, what I generally feel like what they do with Finn, I love how they explore that he wasn't alone, and that's a really inspiring message, and it just fits the whole theme of what this movie was going for, that we're never alone with this, and we can face our fears together. Like, it's never impossible. We're never alone in the fight. There's always someone that can help us out, even in the worst of situations, and that's the main theme that they explore through this film, which I do love. And now we get into Nick's favorite part of this whole film that he's been saying, because we were discussing the film earlier when we started. Nick, what did you think about Kylo Ren?
Me like you.
Me like you a lot. That's the quote of him. I agree with that statement. I think Kylo Ren, and Rey were the best part of this film, without a doubt. Their banter between each other and their big story, which thank God was still like one of the main story arcs. That's why I say, like, I know it sounds confusing because people always hear when I say that, like, how can the characters be interesting and still be a good movie if the story sucks? My point is because characters themselves can still have their own stories that they have to face. That's why Nick and I say earlier character arcs. We didn't just say the characters were cool, because yeah, if the characters were funny and enjoyable, that wouldn't take away that the movie kind of sucked ass and was very confusing. The point is that despite the overarching story that they're going for was kind of messy, and the big story that they're going with, the return of Palpatine, which sucks, and I'm going to explain later more into this review why that doesn't really make sense. The big main story of the clash between I almost said Luke and Rey. Rey and Kylo still is the best part of this movie, and I love the way they handle that. It's nothing new. There's nothing shocking about it. As a matter of fact, if you've seen the original trilogy, you kind of get what they were going for already. They pull a Return of the Jedi where, spoiler alert, Kylo Ren comes back to the light. He finally ends up coming back to the light side after a little return of Mr. Harrison Ford, Han Solo himself, coming back as, he wasn't a Force ghost, right? That's confirmed. Like he came in more like as a figment of his imagination, talking to him.
Yeah.
Is that true? Yeah, because that kind of tripped me out first, because I was betting. This is the thing I've been betting on, guys, for the last like 4 years when The Force Awakens came out. When Han Solo died, and I know you're all gonna call me out stupid on this, I thought since he knew the Jedi so well and believed in the Force, I thought that's all you needed to be able to come back as a Force ghost. I know I learned more now that all you have to do, not that all you have to do, there's way more to becoming a Force ghost, that it's something you have to train, it's something you got to practice to be able to to come back from the Force and come back to the light, to the world of life, to be able to contact people. But I thought Han Solo, since he clearly literally has now blood and has straight up married a chick that now we discover had Force powers and was very Force sensitive and even ends up training to be a Jedi, which is another thing I explored, I'll get to that in a second, that I thought he could come back as Force ghost. But no, he just comes back in his imagination, and it influences Kylo enough that he realizes, you know what, I messed up, I fucked up, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to be a Sith Lord, I want to come back to the good. And he ends up sacrificing himself at the end. I love his arc for that. I love how they handle Kylo. I think Kylo, without a doubt, was the best part. Even though he wasn't my personal favorite, he was, without a doubt, the best part of the whole trilogy. Kylo's story, this whole trilogy is kind of Kylo's story. It's kind of like how, for the original prequel trilogy, it was Anakin's story. This one's definitely Kylo's story. I like how it's always kind of like that, where despite it being the good guy is the main character, the bad guy is the one that really affects more the story and is the bigger focus for the grand story that they're going through. And I do like that. He's kind of like almost, he's a main character within himself. He's a main antagonist, but he ends up becoming almost, I guess, more influential, I guess more important by the end. Because without Kylo, they're not really able to defeat the Emperor. Like, he really did help a lot in what they do. And him together working with Rey is what ends up destroying the whole First Order and finally bringing back peace, which is how they handle the problem in the end. And it's so cool to see him that he finally becomes one with the Force. That's just beautiful. We first see him as this great evil menace that helps destroy entire planets, and he ends up helping destroy the very thing he helped create and becomes at peace with it. I love that. That's what I've always loved about the original trilogy. That was my favorite part of how they handled Darth Vader. And so I think he's one of the most interesting characters of all time. Though I know it's something we've seen before, and people are probably going to complain about that and whine that, oh, we wanted something different. I think it works. If it works, it works. Would I wanted something more unique? Of course. But it's still a classic formula that has been proven to work. It's a great formula. It works, man. You gotta love it. If it works, it works. And I love how they handle Kylo with that. That's what made him fun. That's what made him interesting. That's my favorite part about it. Now, once again, though, the part that really gets my gears going and still left me a lot, I guess the word is, hold on, sorry. We're doing this live, so it's gonna be fucking crazy the whole time. That still left me kind of a bit confused on, and the word isn't confused, a bit disappointed on, because the whole movie wasn't perfect. I will admit that there's a lot of disappointments. I'm reading the comments. Gabe has big gay. 2020 Insidious Dark Realm looks good. Oh my god, are you serious? Jesus Christ, I would do worse than when Pete hit him. Well, what are you guys talking about in the comments? Appreciate the comments. Welcome everyone who's watching, but Jesus Christ, I thought y'all would be asking questions about the movie. One person did ask something. Wings Carl is coming to you soon. I hope Wings comes to me. Aliens 2020. Okay, I'm done with reading the goddamn comments. Okay, but no, definitely still the part that really does mess with me a lot is Palpatine's character. In general, I feel like he's the one thing that brought down this movie a lot for me. I don't see why he had to be there, man. He kind of served no purpose. What do you think, Nick? Nick?
No.
No, can you answer? What are you doing this whole time? We're doing this live. People gotta hear you.
Hmm?
What are you doing? I'm trying to ask him questions. You're not listening. Nick, what are your thoughts on Palpatine?
You should have built him up more.
You should have built him up more. Do you think he was kind of unnecessary for the whole story?
Not necessary, but no. They could have done better with him.
They could, because I kind of see where you're going for it, because it's not like I didn't even hate him altogether. Like, that's the weird thing. I don't think he was terrible either. Like, when he shows up, maybe it's because, like, Ian McDermott's performance is, like, oh, he's always been incredible. He's one of my favorite actors. He kills it as Palpatine, and that makes it so, like, interesting to just see him back. And I like what they were going for. Like, I could see how it could all fit in. But the biggest thing, which is another big problem that this movie had, especially in the first act, we both agreed on this earlier. The weakest part of this movie is the first act, right? Like, are we still on that? Are we still on that boat? Like, that's definitely the worst part of this movie. Like, when you go watch this movie, you're gonna notice, you probably might even, like, if you're a huge Star Wars fanboy and, like, you just do not like how Disney did it, you might even walk out of how insane the first act is. Like, the first act is kind of really all over the place. It's not terrible. There's still a lot of fun sequences, and like I said, they still set up a lot of new things. Like, one of my favorite parts of the first act is how it shows that Rey and Kylo have still been having that clash from the beginning, that they still communicate each other through the Force, and Rey has trained so much more ever since we last saw her. Because, like, do we know exactly how long has it been since The Last Jedi? Do they explain that? Do they show that? Or is it just, like, like, shown that it's just been a passage of time? Is that explored? I don't remember. Is that an answer? Is it explained, like, how long has it been, or is it just, like, told that it's just been some time? Do we not know exactly how much time has passed since The Last Jedi? That's not explained, right?
I'm trying to think. I don't think it. I don't remember it.
I don't know either.
How long has it been? Like,
I don't. But it has been a while, clearly, right? Because they're doing all kinds of different things since we last saw them.
Yeah,
It's been a while. So, assuming that they're going for the same kind of Return of the Jedi kind of plot, it's been like a few months, let's just assume. And in those few months, Rey has become way more powerful with the Force. She's practically mastered it. She's practically become a Jedi Master, right? Like, that's agreed on. She's a Jedi Master. Especially by the end, but, like, from the beginning, like, she was a Jedi Master, right? She got trained by Leia. Yeah, she's a Jedi Master by the beginning, and I love that they show that. And that's one of my favorite sequences of the film, actually, where it shows how much she's learned since the last time and how she's grown as a person, as a character. Like, she's practically mastered everything, aside from her fear of failing and being part of this evil dynasty that she finds out. So it shows how capable she is with the Force, and that's the one part I love about the beginning. It's like this 5-10 minute sequence of her showing all her insane ability that she has now, but then it shows her big conflict of her fighting with Kylo and her conflict with the dark side. That is even explored more in this movie. I noticed that too. Like, there's hints that she might go to the dark side, right? I didn't realize that. Like, aside from even Palpatine's manipulation of her, like, there's moments that she has, even in the beginning, where, like, she's conflicted with anger and hate and trying to kill Ben, that she messes up, like, halfway throughout her training, which I like that. It shows that things are going on. That's good character. That's good writing. That's good character development. I appreciate that. That's the only thing I like about the first act, though. The whole thing is the sequence where it shows that, like, the rebellion has grown a bit despite people not coming to help out. There's still spies willing to help them out and exploring these different worlds. That's always classic Star Wars fun, exploring different worlds and showing how big this universe is and how people are willing to help. I love that. The chase sequence between the TIE fighters were cool. Aside from that, once again, the weakest part of this film, like I said, is still the antagonist. Palpatine just sucks. Really just did suck and was really disappointing. He had no reason to be there, and the beginning is the defining part of that. The beginning also how did I forget about this? Fuck, I love this part too. When it shows, like, how Kylo has become so obsessed with trying to, like, make sure no one can question his power, and has gone throughout the whole galaxy to search for this supposed return of the Grand Palpatine, Palpatine, that when he finally goes meet him, it's literally like almost like exposition mania. Like, it's insane. But yet, despite it being filled with exposition, you don't really understand what they're saying and what's actually happening. Because the problem with the first act is that it happens so ungodly fast. Like, the pacing with this film is going to be 100% of what people have already been complaining about. It's way off. And the biggest pacing issues are in the first act. Nick, like, we were talking about this. Like, do we still know what really Palpatine was? Or what, like, how he was there and how he was back to life? Like, how he survived Return of the Jedi? Like, Do we understand that?
He just said that the dark side gave him powers, so I guess the dark side
But like,
let him live.
let him live, but like,
they didn't
how did he
explain that
live
much.
the fall? How did he live it? Like, did they just put him in another body? Was he reincarnated? Like, it's not explored. Like, that's my problem. It happens all so quick and so ungodly fast that it happens. It just happens. It's just there. And you just got to deal with, like, okay, Palpatine's the main bad guy now. Oh, and apparently has, like, this whole fleet of Star Destroyers, which, yes, are cool. And in the end, still work where, like, it's just, like, the First Order's dealing. And that's why I do like why it's not too complicated. Because despite their story being extremely complicated, the reason the First Order wants them does make sense. They want more weapons, they want more power, and they want to make sure they have enough to just finally destroy the Resistance, crush them once and for all, and spread across the galaxy. So I do get that. But I don't get, so like, how did Palpatine like manage to make a fleet just as big or even bigger than the First Orders and a bunch of planet killers? Like, that's one thing that I always had, like, didn't understand in the beginning. Like, even with Force Awakens, a little nitpick I always had personally is like, I didn't get is, if they're supposed to be what remains of the Empire, how do they have an even bigger Death Star and even crazier ships and have such a grand army? Like, they really should almost be like a terrorist group, where like they can cause a threat, but they shouldn't instantly be like the biggest threat to the galaxy. That's always one thing that I didn't get, but it's still something I'll let fly. But now for me, it's gone to, this is in this film is where it gets to the extreme with Palpatine, where he somehow by himself managed to create an entire fleet of Star Destroyers that had like Star Killer weapons, right, Nick? Like, they could blow up planets. They show that. Yeah, they show that, like, the capability of the weapons. Like, every Star Destroyer has a Death Star array, right? Yeah. Right, Nick? Are you listening? I'll take that as a maybe. Every Star Destroyer has a planet killer, which is interesting, and I like it. It's cool, but since it's not really explained, it doesn't make much sense. And that's for me the biggest faults of the film that does make it disappointing. The bad guys do suck because they're extremely underdeveloped, they're extremely confusing, and you just don't care for them. You don't care. They look cool, and the First Order is still nice, but then here's another problem. Because I get people saying, what about the First Order? The First Order is well developed, so why would you not care about them? Here's the thing. Remember, Kylo was supposed to be the Supreme Chancellor now, the whole deal. And he comes back to good, yes, but here's the thing. It's not by the end. By the end of the movie, it's not by the end of the movie they finally choose to be good like Darth Vader. That's where they change up. It's through the middle of the film, through the middle act, where he finally comes back and he wants to be good, which isn't bad. It still 100% works for Kylo, but then for the whole story, then you're instantly now thinking, I hope you realize then the problem is, who's the main bad guy now? Who's the leader of the First Order? And it's assumed that, I think I told Nick earlier that what should have happened is that once Kylo left, General Hux should have been the one that then takes whole leadership of things. And that would have worked fine then, because we know who Hux is. We've known him before. We understand him. Yes, he could be annoying. I get the fans don't like him too much, but we still know who he is, so it would make sense to have him as leader. He's this power-hungry fanatic that would pretty much, he would suck the dick of fucking, of Supreme Snoke, okay? Of Lord Snoke. Like, that's obvious. He was obsessed with Supreme Snoke. Is that how you say it? Supreme Snoke, right? Am I messing up the name? I feel like I'm getting that name wrong. I think I'm Supreme Chancellor. No, that's the word. Supreme Leader Snoke. That's the word I was thinking about. And now that he's dead, then he had to serve Kylo, and he wasn't happy with that. And since Kylo, what should have happened is that when he should have realized that Kylo was wanting to leave, and then he just kicks him out, and then he becomes the leader of the whole deal. Here's the problem, though. Another plot point that they go for is that apparently General Hux is a secret spy that is trying to help out the Resistance because he hates Kylo so much that instead he just wants to backstab him and make sure he doesn't survive, and he kills him off. And that's all fine. That still could have worked with him ending up becoming the leader. But then, Nick, what happens? Are you still listening? I don't think you heard the whole thing. They kill him off. Hux dies. He just dies like through the beginning of the film, which just makes the whole thing fail. Like, and now with Hux dead, Kylo goes back to good through the middle act, and Emperor Palpatine not being well explored, there's really no main baddie to like root for or to like be scared of. It's just really the First Order and their fleet, and it's not that they don't have one, because in this movie they explore that there's this whole counselor now of fucking senators or counselors of the First Order that all could take leadership. But the thing is, though, yeah, they're there, but they're not interesting and they're not explored at all. And where have they been throughout the last 3 movies? So it's like, you don't care about them. They're there. It's meant to be now like this new guy, this kind of bald leader. Am I correct? They kind of like have a bald spotted leader that takes whole control of the First Order fleet. You don't know who the hell this guy is. He wasn't explored through the movie at all. He's just some guy. Either Hux should have been the main bad guy, or Kylo should have been the bad guy till the end, and then he goes back to good. And the whole thing just falls apart. Because of that, there's not really an antagonist to go through. And that is the weakest part of this film, without a doubt. There's a lot more plot holes that do exist, admittedly. It's not, once again, like I said, it's not a perfect film. That is the biggest part that fails, though. The first act does not work at all with the whole thing of Palpatine just being explained, like, super quickly of how he's here. His powers aren't really well explored. There's no bad guy throughout the whole movie that just makes it fail. Lots, and makes the movie suffer for that, where you just don't, there's no really big stakes when it comes to, you know, the bad guy they want to defeat, aside from the fleet of the First Order and Imperial Star Cruisers. And pacing's just off. That's the big thing. A lot of things happen very quick. That's pretty much it, though. That's the biggest problems I have with this movie. I know a lot of people are disappointed with it, and I get these things alone can really piss off a lot of people. There's people already, I've seen reviews from my favorite critics that even admit, despite being honest, saying that they can see how people still like the movies, but I understand such big problems like these that bring down the movie a lot when it's supposed to be the last film of this iconic saga could disappoint people. I 100% get that. Like, if this makes you hate the movie and makes you think the movie sucks and it's really disappointing and I don't want to go see it, I get that. Fair enough. Here's the thing, though, that Nick and I were discussing earlier, though, that we've been having trouble with the fan base and the community in general for the last few years. Yes, this movie has problems. It's not perfect, and there's clear glaring issues that bring it down. But when other films did it, like when the MCU, we brought this up as an example. When the MCU did it and they had really crappy villains that you didn't care for, did that mean that the whole movie sucked? Did that mean that the MCU was over and that the MCU sucks now, that they killed the MCU and they ruined it all? That mean that Guardians of the Galaxy sucked because Ronan was kind of a forgettable bad guy? No. Because there's so much more to a movie than just one plot point or one piece of the story or one character. Especially in a film franchise like Star Wars, it's all about big worlds and a big vast amount of characters and all the things that they explore. Like, there's so much more to it. If one thing fails, or even 3 different things fail, as I mentioned, that doesn't mean the whole movie fails. The movie isn't just one thing. The movie isn't just characters. The movie isn't just special effects. The movie isn't just story. It's all of them. There's so much to go with. It's not just plot. It's not just characters. It's not just effects. If one thing fails, what about the other 2? And that's the thing I've been thinking about the whole time. It was the same thing that why I was with The Last Jedi. Yes, there's problems with that movie. And you guys know what I felt about it. I haven't changed my opinion of what I thought about The Last Jedi all these years. I actually watched it again for like the 15th, I can't speak, the 15th or 16th time again yesterday. And if anything, I just appreciated it more. Did I notice the problems? Yes. If you guys want to know, because I know for that film, that was when the movie was still out, so that was my spoiler. It was only spoiler review I ever did. There's problems with the films. Cancel by it. I'm on that side. I'm on that boat. I get it. Cancel by it wasn't terrible. It was the worst thing ever, but it's really unnecessary. They were exploring the same things in other arcs and with other characters. It just seemed like a detour, distracted a lot. And like I said, I even said earlier in this film with why Finn kind of had trouble throughout this film, though they do save him and lead in with him exploring these new characters and exploring this idea that he's not alone. Finn either should have died in the last movie or should have not wanted to sacrifice himself by the end. That whole Finn arc thing really messed things up for me by the end of The Last Jedi. But despite those 2 things, I didn't like. Oh, and Leia's weird Force ghost thing, or Force thing, how she apparently can use the Force to pull herself back to the ship. It's not really explored later. It just happens. And I thought it was even personally disrespectful that I even said that they should have just killed off Carrie Fisher, or Princess Leia, in honor of Carrie Fisher, which they do in the end of this movie, by the way. She does die, unfortunately, but which makes sense. And those things I didn't like. That didn't ruin the whole movie, though. That didn't make it the worst Star Wars movie of all time. It didn't make it a terrible movie. Those are 3 problems I could bring up. And yet I can name you 10, 15 different things that I absolutely love about the film. And that didn't mean that all the characters sucked because of that. That didn't mean that Finn was still not an interesting and fun character that I love to go through throughout the rest of the journey. The ending of the film, even the whole ending sucked ass, does not take away from those first 2 acts. And that's my point. The first act of this film is definitely the biggest problem, and pretty much is the whole summary of, like, if I just had to go straightforward, summarize the whole thing, Just make it simple. First act is what I didn't like about this movie. That doesn't mean there's two great acts that there isn't to love and to be excited for. And that's my point. I understand that, yes, this whole film and this whole trilogy is connected to one of the most iconic sagas and iconic trilogies of all time. The original first three films, episode 4, 5, and 6. Empire. A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. And I get what those films mean to people. It means a lot to me too. You guys, I literally, before The Last Jedi came out, did a whole retro review about those films. You guys can go see what those films mean to me. Like, seriously, I don't have to explain it here. Like, those films always have a special place in my heart. That doesn't mean that because other films don't meet those expectations, means they suck. I don't understand where this mentality came from, where if it's not as good as A New Hope or as good as the original films, they're just not good. Like, is that just me? Like, Nick, don't you feel like that's an impossible standard to reach? And that it seems like what people have been complaining about for the last few years, right?
Yeah. That's
And look,
like every movie, though.
yeah, it's the same thing, and it's the same with every movie. Because perfect example right now. Look, I literally have the poster right here. I could use this. I'm just staring at it. Oh wait, wrong camera. Right? No, right way. Look, if you see the side of, I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm trying to move the camera without breaking shit. Oh wait, why don't I just do this? If you see right there, I got a little Endgame poster there. You guys saw my review of Endgame. I absolutely loved it. I loved it as much as Infinity War and said it was one of the best films of the year, let alone of the decade, and one of my favorite films I think of all time. I absolutely love that film to death. Then Far From Home came out, and it wasn't as good. The villain was kind of confusing, kind of sucks, but I still loved the movie. Just because the villain sucked and it wasn't as good as Endgame, does that mean I hate the movie and was super disappointed by it? No, not at all. Captain Marvel, after Infinity War and before Endgame, that middle film, aside from Ant-Man and the Wasp, it was probably one of the weakest films of the MCU of like the last 5 years, right? Nick, can we agree? It wasn't really that good compared to the other ones? Does that mean that the film was bad? No, not at all. You guys saw my review. I still loved the film. I thought it was a solid, fun experience. It still was a good, solid story. And that's what you guys notice. That's one thing I always say to appreciate. Not everything has to be a 10 out of 10. And I've always said that for these last few years, and it's especially for Star Wars. The original films will always be there. Nothing will take those away. They will always be legendary. But that doesn't mean we can't just have a solid story. Why don't people, if it's that case for that mentality, why did not people absolutely despise Revenge of the Sith? Why do people outright now even defend that film more despite how shitty the prequels were? Even the other prequels, but especially Revenge of the Sith. That's the one like everyone agrees was like the good prequel of those three. Why do people not hate it and find it absolutely disappointing? Because it kind of sucked. Let's be real here, guys. There's a lot of things that sucked about that film. There were some terrible acting moments, some of the most iconic, terrible lines in history from that. Some absolutely fail moments, some really weird CGI, terrible villains aside from the Emperor. Name one thing interesting about General Grievous, and it's before the Clone Wars happened. I know everyone loves it now because of the Clone Wars, but remember, in Revenge of the Sith, forget the Clone Wars. That didn't happen years later in advance. What is interesting about him in Revenge of the Sith? It's nothing. He's absolutely boring. He's completely forgettable. He's one of the most forgettable bad guys, I think, in the whole saga. I hated Grievous for years until I saw the Clone Wars. I didn't find him interesting. But that didn't mean the movie sucked. Despite even the terrible moments with Hayden Christensen's kind of wooden acting, I still think he still did a fantastic job as Anakin, and that's definitely one of the best portrayals he's ever done. Anakin was a great character through it. His downfall is heartbreaking. Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor was fantastic, and Ian McDiarmid, despite some really awkward moments like when he goes, no, that iconic thing, I still absolutely love him, and I think he was the best part of the movie. Rise of Skywalker is disappointing. I'll be 100% honest, because of what I mentioned. The first act is a mess, and the bad guys are really not that interesting and really confusing. And I get it's really upsetting to people because in a saga that has some of the most iconic bad guys of all time, to have a really messy and forgettable bad guy can really be annoying, right? But does that really mean that the movie sucks for it? I don't see it. I think it's the complete opposite. I think we could still appreciate a film despite its flaws. And yeah, it's not the most satisfying finale to a trilogy, or to, is that the right word? Yes, I don't know why I'm messing up words today. It's not the most satisfying finale to a trilogy, let alone a saga, but it doesn't mean it was a terrible one. Doesn't mean it ruined anything. It was satisfying enough to me. And yes, once again, it has problems. Do I wish it was a perfect ending? Do I wish everything made sense and everything was super exciting? Do I wish we had incredible bad guys to root for and be scared of? Do I wish that every single plot point connected? Yes, of course I do. But it doesn't mean that what we got didn't work at all, and that things didn't work altogether, and that there weren't characters to still appreciate, there weren't still sequences to absolutely love. I didn't even get to mention the music. John Williams' score is always... Nick, come on, can we agree the score that he did was one of the best? Pretty good, pretty fucking amazing. It was incredible. The cinematography was breathtaking. The sequences were incredible. I've mentioned already, one of my favorite parts of the beginning were the Rey and Kylo sequences. Those were excellent. And I didn't even touch about that. How could I forget that? There's so much more to a movie than just plot points and lore. And that's what I feel like everyone's been complaining about, they say ruins in movies for the last few years. And I think that's really toxic and really damaging to the franchise. Because if we just look through the films from that perspective, I'm sorry, we're never going to be able to appreciate a Star Wars film. The reason I appreciate Mandalorian so much, and I think people like it so much and it's so easy to like, because since it's so like disconnected from the grand lore and the grand lore and saga of the Skywalker films, that it can just do its own thing and just worry about first being an interesting story or have good characters first. And so there's nothing to connect it to and to be disappointed by. We can only judge it by its characters and the story, or storytelling. I think this was a fine movie. I loved it. In conclusion, to end it here, because I know we've been talking and rambling a lot, there's so much I want to discuss. Rise of Skywalker, to me, Nick, do you want me to do the ending statement first, or do you want to do it yourself? You want to do your conclusion? You hate, you hate Star Wars? You want to call Disney? You like Star Wars? In conclusion, I fucking love Star Wars, and I thought Rise of Skywalker, despite its big flaws, especially with the first act and the really disappointing and messy antagonist, still had incredibly likable, incredibly emotional protagonists, incredibly caring and interesting and fun characters to keep you going, incredible breathtaking sequences, and solid ending, solid conclusions to the story, making it a great... Is that the right word? I'm messing up my words. I'm thinking of different words as I go. A solid ending to the Grand Saga. It has flaws. It had its issues. But it keeps it strong enough with its great characters to love and its great character arcs that it explores that it makes it a 100% solid finale to this Grand Saga. I liked it. I thought it was solid. I'm giving Rise of Skywalker 7.5 out of 10. That's my score. Solid film, big flaws, especially in the first act. Very disappointing antagonists. That's my review. Nick, what would you give it?
7 out of 10.
Solid 7? Fair enough. I'm 7.5 territory, but that's fine. You don't have to like as much as me. And once again...
Yeah, 7.5 is more realistic.
You get 7.5? I think that's my personal one. I think that's the most realistic one, but I still respect 7. And even with that, guys, like I always say, this is just my opinion. I try my best to be very open-minded, to analyze the reason why I feel this way, and if I'm right about things or not, but, you know, in the end, this is just my perspective to it. If you guys didn't like it or have different standards to movies and were disappointed by this film, that's 100% fine. As a matter of fact, I want to hear that. What did you guys think of Rise of Skywalker? Do you guys absolutely love it? Do you think it fixes everything? Do you guys think it just ruined everything and just ruined the trilogy for you? Do you guys think, like us, it was just a fine, solid, fun movie, and it just did its job, and it was a great ending, or at least a satisfying ending? That's the right word I'm looking for. I don't want to use the word great because it's not perfect. A satisfying ending to this Grand Saga. That's the way we see it. What did you guys think? I want to hear your reasonings. Let's keep it nice in the comments, because I'm generally, like, this is just something I'm really passionate about, clearly. We're big Star Wars fans, like everybody here. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. Nick, leave the people in the comments alone. Let's make it nice, let's make it fun here. This is Star Wars, man. You gotta love it. I always say, and even one thing I was discussing with Nick earlier, the number one thing I want you guys to take out of all this is just to remember the good times of why do you like Star Wars in the first place? What attracted to it at all? And did these films remind you of that? Did these films bring that to you, what you loved in the first place? If it didn't, that's fair enough. If they disappointed you in that perspective, that's fine. For me, it brought everything of what I loved about those films. The exploration of worlds, this brand new universe with people that we could still relate to despite it feeling so foreign and so different. These arcs of good versus evil, these classic epic stories, and the conflict of trying to struggle with those grand battles of good versus evil fear, overcoming those fears, becoming bigger than you once were, becoming something from nothing. It's something, it's classic stories that you're naturally attracted to. You just can't deny the epic and just magic of Star Wars. And for me, yes, especially for this film and the whole trilogy altogether. Now looking back at the whole trilogy, it's not perfect. There are clear flaws, and clearly I will admit that thinking about it more and looking back and seeing a lot of reviews, you can tell that Disney, I feel like Disney, it's not that they didn't have a plan, but they didn't know how to execute that plan. 100% is what I feel like that happened. They trusted too much on just like giving it to directors that have made great films in the past and improved themselves, that they just assume, oh, they've done great stuff. They should know what they're doing, then we can trust them. But the reason I'll admit what the MCU's advantage over Star Wars that they have is that Kevin Feige doesn't just hire random directors and say, you have creative freedom, do whatever you want, boom, go. No, they make sure they have a grand plan. They make sure things make sense. They make sure things connect, and make sure things are crazy but are not crazy enough. There's a reason why there's something called the Marvel formula. They have a formula to their films that they do experiment. They don't follow all the time, but they always remember to keep that as their main basis, to make sure things don't just become too wild. And I do admit that Star Wars clearly did not have a formula to go with, and that's why things can seem very messy in a lot of places, can be very disappointing in some areas. But I still think it was 100%. To me, in conclusion, what I feel about the trilogy, it's a 100% solid trilogy. Yes, Rise of Skywalker does confuse things, especially the bad guys in the end, that do make it disappointing. So there's not really one running antagonist in the end, but there's still a fuck ton of running protagonists in the end. There's still a lot of characters to love. There's still so much you can have fun with. There's still so much you can appreciate, not just on the fun wise of it, of the cool sequences and special effects, but with the characters. I still absolutely love Poe Dameron. He's one of my favorite characters of the whole Rebellion story. I love Finn. And Rey, personally, if you wonder who's my personal favorite character, it's Rey. I think she's my favorite character of this whole trilogy. I understand people really don't like her, and for some reason, for the last few years, they were calling her fucking Mary Sue, which, okay, I don't know where that comes from. She's never shown, and if she was shown to have, like, these crazy superpowers, even though she never really is shown that, she is trained, even if she does, it's not like characters aren't aware of it, and it's not like, you know, she's just perfect at everything. She's shown that she doesn't like to have them, and she's conflicted by it, so I don't get how people can complain about that, but yeah, it's there. I thought she was amazing. I loved her arc, and I loved the way they end it, and especially the finale to this movie, where, oh yeah, I didn't mention, spoiler alert, Leia apparently was a Jedi as well, which I do admit, first, I am conflicted on that, like, because it could seem like it's a bit forced in, but Carrie Fisher is gone, so there's no way they could add that anymore. You got, God damn it, they focus on the movie, not on being an edgy little teenager. But I still like the way it sounded, where it is interesting enough, where it is written in a way where, like, things that were hinted at in the earlier first two films could make it look like that she was just hiding that secret for this whole time. So it is handled well, and because of that, Rey ends up getting Leia's lightsaber, and that's what she fights with by the end of the movie. But by the end, she gets Luke's and Leia's lightsaber, goes back to Tatooine at the original Moisture Farm where it all started, and buries the lightsabers there. That was such a beautiful ending. I'm sorry, I don't get how people can complain about that. That ending was perfect. That, for me, is stuff like that is what saved this movie. That's the way I feel about the whole movie altogether. I know I already gave my conclusion, but, like, here's, like, the main way I feel about it. For everything that fails, there's, like, 3 things that work really well. That's it. For every, like, con, there's, like, 3 pros. And that's what, for me, like, kept this movie going. Like, it refused to give up, and I appreciate that. It's like that, it's almost like this is gonna be really weird, a metaphor. That like this extremely injured football player trying to make it to the end zone. Like, he's super hurt, he's broken in all kinds of places, it's super fucked up, but it's just, he's strong enough and just he's well held up enough in his structure that he can make it to the end. And it's just so satisfying still. It's not perfect. There's problems there was problems during the way. There was problems during that run, but he makes it to the end. That's the way I feel about this film. Once again, one more conclusion, because I didn't really make sense earlier, admittedly. It's live. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. First act sucked ass. Palpatine, the antagonists, were garbage. Disappointing as hell. But for all those problems, the characters keep you going the whole time. The arcs that they explore are just incredibly satisfying, and they're just incredible. and it has so much still to give with its incredible sequences, incredible cinematography, incredible music, incredible performances also. By the way, Adam Driver, without a doubt for me, was the best had the best performance of this whole film. And the characters are just so lovable and fun. And so there still was so much to explore and appreciate from them that it keeps you going the whole way. It's for me 100% satisfying ending to the saga. Not perfect, but it's satisfying. Alright. Thank you all for watching. Once again, what did you guys think of Rise of Skywalker? I really do want to hear them. I want to hear your thoughts. Go all the way. Discuss down below in the comments. I'm really curious to hear about them. But that's what I felt about the film. Thank you all for watching so much, watching this review. I know there's a really weird, there's a really weird review I've done. I haven't done this in a while. This was my first live review, especially with a guest. And Nick, you're a terrible guest. Have I ever told you that? Jesus Christ, you don't talk at all. But oh my God, it's still fun to have them. No, it's still fun to have someone over and to feel like I'm talking to someone else instead of to myself. So that was fun. I always love doing this stuff for you guys. Thank you all for watching. Go watch Rise of Skywalker, or just go tell me what you thought about it if you've already seen it. Hope you all have a great day. And may the Force be with you. It was a bad joke. I'm sorry. See you guys.